Yes.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Gen Friends. I'm your host, Cheri Hudson-Passy from Carolina Girl Genealogy. We have got an amazing panel, as always. We've got Laura Hedgecock from Treasure Chest of Memories. Hey, Laura.
Howdy, howdy.
It's good to see you. We've got Melissa Barker, our archive lady, who is in the middle of moving. So we're so grateful that she's here. Hi,
Hi,
Melissa.
everybody.
She's not leaving Tennessee or her
No,
archive. She's just
no,
moving house.
Even her neighborhood, she ain't moving.
She's not
no.
even moving her neighborhood. Exactly. We have got Shelley Murphy, our family tree girl. Hello.
Hey, everybody. How's everyone doing?
We're good. We're good. And we've got Bernice Bennett from Jeannie B. Roots and so many other things.
Hello, everyone.
And last but absolutely not least is Jenny Hawran. She is here and she is from Like Herding Cats Genealogy. Hello, Jenny.
Hi there. Hi, everyone.
I love that name.
I know. It just makes me giggle.
It
Anyway,
does.
it is February and it is Black History Month. And so who better to talk to us about some tips and African American genealogy than our own Shelley and Bernice. And so we have asked them to do just that. Just talk to us a little bit about African American genealogy. Now, I do some African American genealogy because my several of my ancestors were enslavers, and so I like to try to pull those names out of the records and do some genealogy. And I've got some clients that in the past, and one right now, thanks to Shelley, who who I am working on her. She's African American. I'm working on her family tree for her, and so I'm excited to get some tips and trips. Tips and tricks. Oh boy, to help me as I
Yeah.
genealogy.
This is
Woo!
going to be a good discussion tonight.
It
I
is.
wonder where it's
No,
going.
it's on the road to find out. So it's trips.
Exactly.
So,
I
Exactly.
so
got you, Cheri.
let's just get this
Let's
discussion
just get this started.
what
Okay.
everybody wants to know,
Yes.
but afraid to ask it. Now, you got two of us on here. Go for it.
Okay, I've got a question. So we all know, well, we may not all know, but when you're researching the formerly enslaved, you try to figure out who their enslaver was, right? So, because you need to go through that enslaver's records to find
Mhm.
out more information. True?
Well, I have found that that's the case,
Yeah.
but I have to start much, much earlier.
I was going to say, let's back up.
I,
Let's
I, I
back
can't
the
jump
truck
to
up.
I can't jump to the enslaver's
Okay,
record.
okay, then start with step one then. If I've got somebody
Okay,
right now, what would be step one that I would want to do?
start
There
with
you go.
yourself.
Yeah,
Start with yourself and
absolutely.
understand, well, who's in your family.
Hmm.
And then if you are successful in starting with yourself, you then start looking at the human archives, the people in your families who can answer the questions that you
Hmm.
need to have answered. And that doesn't mean that you're going in any documents right now. You're knocking on the door of cousins, you're talking to mama, you're talking to grandmother. And I definitely want to say, try to talk to the oldest person in the family.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
some people may call this oral history. I call it listening and storytelling.
Oh, I love
There
it.
you go.
It's important to understand that when you start saying, tell me about the school you went to,
Hmm.
you will hear so much. You will hear about the friends. You will hear about the clothing they wore. You'll hear the name of the teacher. You will hear how they got to school just by saying, tell me about the school.
Yeah.
And so I like to tell people to always start with yourself. Now, I have had people to tell me, I don't know anything because I grew up in a house where children were to be seen and not heard.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I will say, as a child, what did you hear?
Well, there you go. Perfect.
Okay. What
Yes.
did you hear? And who came to your house? And
Hmm.
did you go to church? And what church did you go to? What family people came to your house? What were some of the traditions? Did you all have big birthday parties? In my culture in New Orleans, if we had a big party, people would get money pinned on them.
Ooh,
So we
nice.
would talk about the people that came to the house and pin the
That
money.
did happen in Grand Rapids, Michigan for my party.
But if you get people to start thinking, you
Mhm.
want to get them to go through what I call reminiscent therapy.
Oh,
Remember
right.
when? Do you remember when we had the big storm? Or remember when we had hurricanes every year? Well, it was just like the snow days to the kids when they don't have school. We didn't have school when it was a hurricane, you know.
So,
But to
honestly,
get
I'm
people
sorry,
to
Bernice.
start talking.
Yeah, I was going to say when we talk about different ethnic groups and their genealogy, we're all starting the same. We're starting with ourselves.
Yes.
It's
And
all
that
the
was what
same.
I was going to
Yeah, go
comment,
ahead.
that
Yeah,
we start the same. It's
exactly.
not anything
That's
different.
why I
If
jumped
you get
back.
a certain period, it
Yeah.
could be different. And that's going to be with everybody, because even though it might be, say, descendants of Africans or African Americans in this country, it doesn't matter where. You're going to hit this. You need to start with the same path. But I want to back up a little bit further, and to what Bernice said, and first say, what do you want to know? What do you really want to know? And yes, you're going to start with yourself, but figure out, what do you want to know? And how I got started with genealogy was helping my mother. And how it happened was, she made the comment, and I knew she had the story. She was the one sitting with her grandmother and all of that. But what she said to me was that her grandmother told her, so that's my great grandmother, that her daddy was a slave. That did it. What is that? What do you mean? What's going on? Who is that? Where was it? And that was the hook for me, was, now I want to know about this man named George Marsh. And I still ain't found him today. No, I'm saying prior to freedom and coming forward, all we have is VA on every record and everything, Virginia. I know where him and the second great grandmother gets married. I know where they're at, and do the typical, this is another side tip. Look at the community. Don't just look at the surnames. Go for the community research. That's for everybody. Stop looking just for the Murphys or the Passeys or whoever. Look at everybody that is around your people in that community, because you know what? Family is not far from family, no matter what. And they hop in and out of the different counties. They marrying people and all of that, but they're pretty much all still around the same area, unless there's some migration going on. So
But-
I would say, find out set your goal first, and then start building what you're trying to find out, and then plan that, starting with yourself and going to the people in the family. And like she said, the elders, but don't forget everybody else. Because if Bernice is my first cousin, she might got the story a little bit different than what I got. And so I want it from everybody, elders first, and then come on down the line. So
Good.
Laura,
I
you
have
got
a question. Yeah, because in my experience, people kind of answer the what do they want to find out with more of what the preconceived expectations are, not necessarily what they truly want. And then there are other people that they just want some sense of self-identity, and they don't really have a good way to prescribe that I want to get this many generations back, or I want great grandma's recipe. They don't know exactly what that means. They just know that they're searching for something.
Yeah.
So how do you help them with that?
I would still say the same thing. Like she said, really, it's about the communication and start talking. People have to know, and this is the other part of me, you have to set that goal. You can't just say, I want to know everything about
Which
the
is
Hedgecock
what I get.
family.
I get that a lot
Be
from
more
people.
specific
Yes,
on
I
what
want to
you're
know
after,
everything.
and
Yeah.
it will start coming. But people have to learn about asking questions. And I think that's another important piece to genealogy, especially with different race groups. You're going to have to ask questions because the people of color, whoever it is, Indian, Asian, Black, whatever, they didn't make the laws. They're not the ones writing on the paper.
Exactly.
We have to go find that. And then I'm going to make this statement to your audience. Everything you want to know about African Americans' ancestry, you got to research the white ancestry.
Exactly. That's
That
what
stuff is coming together.
Yeah.
That table is there. Don't think you're separate stuff in this, that, and other. We know where the paper's at, and there's still stuff we don't have access to or we can't get to. But the bottom line is you have to do them together. And I've learned this because the family is mixed, or I'm dealing with slave era or not slave era, slave owners or enslaved, and stuff like that. So actually, I see African American folks or genealogists that are researching this, you're getting a little bit of both. On your research. And Cheri, you talked about research in your family. You're looking at the enslaved and you're looking at the enslaver. So you're getting a little touch of both of that. I think it's fascinating. And I've been hooked now well over 40 years and don't have sense to stop. Just
Bernice, I've got a question. Let's pull you in for a minute. So I get this sometimes from different people, and I'll ask African Americans, what are you looking for? They say, I want to go back all the way and find my first ancestor that came from Africa. What do you say when people say that to you?
Well, I sometimes say, I don't know if I can go that far back. We need to start at a certain period of time and work ourselves back to as far as we can get. But going all the way to Africa right now, for many people, it's really difficult when they can't even find their ancestors in the 1910 census.
Right.
They don't know where they were. I have communicated with people, and I have observed that migration has taken place, meaning the families have moved out of, let's say, the South to New York.
Yeah.
And I'll say, I can see that you're connecting to me through my South Carolina kin. And I'll get back, no, this is a person from Jersey. We're straight out of Jersey. And the reason they're saying that is because they do not know.
Exactly.
Because the you talk about how much information is retained from generation to generation. By the third generation, if they're not still calling their names and telling their stories, they have forgotten. They don't have the information, which means I have to take them back and walk them through the process.
Judy Russell does a talk on that,
Yes,
the
she
3
does.
generations and back.
Yes. And so, talking them back through the process, then they understand why I would say what I said, because I'm finding information on their family members and knowing where the origin was. And, it's important to understand that there was migration and there was forced migration. For example, there's forced migration of folks from Bertie County, North Carolina, to a place in Mississippi. Now, they need to understand that, and sometimes they don't, because that information didn't carry over. Just like you'll find people that will discover they have ancestors that were in the Civil War.
Right.
But the information didn't carry over. So we have to go back and retrain people to listen to the clues, to hear words like the Great War or when the stars fell, or whatever kind of clue that's presented to them. Hear that clue. I'm into listening. I'm into listening really carefully to a clue that will take me in a direction to help somebody. And so that's when I will say, we're not going to get to Africa yet until we get you in America to as far back as we can. And for that, I'm meaning the 1870 census. If I can help you get back to the 1870 census, then we're going to start, and this is post-emancipation. We're going to try to work you, before before emancipation, which was enslavement, but we still have to get you to a certain point to get you there.
Exactly.
That's a good one. It's a good one. And the other thing is, and I mentioned about community research, and I think people need to understand they probably know a little bit more than they think.
Yes.
And that's again comes back to that communication. And this is for all genealogy, because I think about the work that I do for the university. I'm talking about people that are trying to go right back to free or enslaved, but back before the Civil War. But you're so right, Bernice. They ain't got to where the grandparents, great grandparents, a lot of times they know them, but they might not know the history or what comes with it that family historians or genealogists would be looking for: birth, death, marriage, land records, things like that, transactions, whatever, and stuff to start building to tell that story. And again, what is their goal? My goal was to find George Marsh as a slave. That was my ultimate goal. Right. And I'm finding everybody else, thousands of other people, but I still only have him in one place at one time. And then, his life once he leaves Virginia, West Virginia, I can't get him prior to that, which is a challenge to bring this topic up with people that are researching people of color. First, you got to understand you got free people and you got enslaved people. But it doesn't mean that that person was born free or that person that was enslaved was born enslaved. This is all part of what you're learning, because any of that could have happened more than once during that person's lifetime.
Right. And that's why it's so important to learn about history and laws and all those kind of things. So it's not just about finding records. You got to understand why the records were created, and maybe that can help you.
And not everything is on a record.
Yeah, not everything is on there, and not everything is online either. So, and I think,
we also run into this situation where folks are looking for their enslavers, and they get fixated on the surname.
Yes.
This is my family surname. So I'm going to look for an enslaver with that surname. That's not necessarily the case.
9 times out of 10 it's not.
I found 2 sets of great-great-grandparents and the enslavers. One set did have the enslaver's last name, but another set did not.
Yes.
And what got me there was something that was absolutely amazing to me, and this is where you have to start understanding records, was a Freedman Bank record. Freedman Bank and Trust record had a great-great-uncle's name. He listed his mother, his father, his wife, his children, and all of his siblings. But they did not have the enslaver's name. But then I found the plantation records. By the way, I will be discussing this at the National Genealogical Conference.
I'm going. I'm going to go.
But I did find the enslavers' plantation records where my ancestors were in there. It's almost like they took the bank record and they took the names right out of the bank record and stuck it on the plantation records.
I love it.
And I found my great-great-great-grandfather, who was born in 1794.
Wow.
He's there, the wife's there, all of the children. I mean, so you have to know about the record groups that may take you to the next level. And that's what's important. Also, it's important to understand what's available in the community of which you're researching, which means that you should also consider studying, going to the Historical Society, finding out the records they have, joining the Genealogical Society, telling people what you're looking for, so that Because for all you know, they know what you're looking for.
Right.
And this is what happened at one of the genealogical societies that I was a part of.
Wow.
And discovered that the former president, God rest him, she's no longer with us, but she knew who I was before I knew who she was, because she
Ooh,
saw
that
my whole
sounds
list.
interesting.
She saw my whole list of ancestors, and she saw them, and she knew who we were because she had them in her own records. And so it's important for you to do as much as you can with your own genealogical journey, and then start talking to other people, even getting yourself a genie buddy that can help you. And I would never tell anybody to go off to a community without studying the community, and also finding somebody in that community that can help you. And that has been one of the things that I have discovered in all of my research. I find out who's in that community, who knows something, so that I could reach out to them and say, this is what I'm looking for. And when I go to the community, I will meet them. And I have met a genealogist at the courthouse. And going into the courthouse, I found marriage records, 1872, 1874 marriage records, because she knew what was there. And we went, and this is in Louisiana. And I have to, it's Dr. Antoinette Harrell. She was extremely helpful to me. But this is what happens when you start doing your research. Don't be an only lonely. You don't have to walk this road.
Only lonely online.
Yeah, and online. You don't have to walk this road by yourself.
Yes.
When you have other people that can also give you the guidance and the support that you need. And that's why I like being a part of genealogy groups. Because I listen, as I said, I'll listen before I open my mouth and talk, because I am trying to pick up the information that's going to help me to take it to the next level. And so I tell everybody else, keep your mouth closed and listen. There's so much to gain with these ears, you know, and then watch what's being shown to you and understand it, and then try to turn around and apply it to your own situation.
Well, Bernice and Shelley, you know, as an archivist, I have African Americans coming into my archives because we had, or still have, a community. And so, from what I'm listening to you, you're telling a lot of these people think, you know, it's difficult to research my family history. I'm not going to find anything because they were enslaved. And so, what are some of the myths surrounding this type of research that we need to get out there and tell everybody? Because I'm constantly telling them, my patrons, when they come in, oh no, we can try, we can look, we have records, you know. And so, what are some of the myths that you have heard in the community, on some of the genealogy shows? You know,
I won't say anything. I will let Bernice take 1870.
I was just going to say, we better get the 1870.
You know, that bothers me more than anything. And matter of fact, I will be doing that class in April for legacy on the records prior to 1870. But I will let Bernice respond, and I will be quiet.
Okay.
It bothers all of us.
It bothers. It's a lot of things, but let me just go with just the spelling of the names. That, oh gee, that's a pet peeve of mine. Well, we spell our name this way. It's not that way, so it can't be my family. And I'll say, spelling does not matter. You have to understand the time in which this person's name was being spelled. They did the best they could, but it did sound the same way. It's just spelled differently. Okay, so let's get people through that. Spelling does not count. Okay.
Hey, well, wait, back up. If they're around the same people, in the same house with the same people, you don't care what the last name is. If you got everything else, it's your people.
There you go.
It's your people. The other thing is that, yes, names do change. Case example, my ancestor's name, I'll go to the 1870 census because I know his name was wrong. It was listed as Johnson. 1880, Clark. Freedmen's
Oh.
Bureau record, Clark. So what do? You do first name search.
Yes.
There you go.
You,
Yeah.
you in the community, you're in the same community. Go with the first names of the people. Yes, first names do help, especially if they are consistent. You know, you find
that family unit. Yeah.
This is the unit. This is the same. These are the same people. The name the surname just changed.
And that was something that was very common too, right? As people came out of slavery, they would choose one name sometimes, or somebody would give them that name, and then they would change it for various reasons. And so you do have that happening.
And actually that happens not just in African American as well. The names and the spellings and things. That needs to be a golden rule for genealogy research.
Sure.
Period. Yeah. And I sit here and think of, because the common myth is also, okay, my last name is Murphy. That means an enslaver was Murphy. Well, but then you also got a lot of folks that their lines of ancestors were not even enslaved. And so is it Murphy or not, you know? But the spelling of Murphy, and I was looking for 30 years for William Michael Murphy, which every white Catholic family in the United States and probably also in Ireland have a William Michael Murphy in their family. And so I never found him. And then DNA said he didn't exist. It's this person. So again, not only the changing in the spelling, my Goins surname, Goins, Gongs, Goens, I have 9 different spellings just for that one surname. And so we're trying to make sure people get that this is everybody. You know, you're going to come across this way. Plus, think about folks coming into this country and names could have changed. You know, the spellings or half of it got cut off, you know, or something, be them coming free, you know, coming on what ship they were coming on. Any of that could have changed. And it could have changed as their life went on too. And then remember, us as women, we lose our name. We lose our maiden names. And again, when you're researching, are you looking for the woman or your ancestor before she was married or when she is married? So that's another search tip. You do on the first name. Maybe you don't know her maiden name, but you can get her brother or something or the husband and just don't put it there. And so that's a problem, I think. When people build their trees, they put the married name instead of the maiden name if they know it. So then that data, I mean, that search is only going after Shelley Murphy. Not, I mean, and Murphy say is the married name, but they're not looking at Shelley Williams or whatever it was. And I want everything before I was a Murphy, you know, and I'm trying to find her parents or whatever, you know, as an example. So keep going on 1870. We ain't done yet.
Right, I was gonna say,
but I wanted to also say, you know, Melissa, you find that people are hearing, oh, it is so hard. It's almost like a woe is me. It's so hard. And records didn't exist. And that's really a myth. Because what kind of records are you looking for? You know, I mean, if you don't have a marriage license, I mean, the death and the birth and all that, that's one thing. But your folks made it in the newspaper some kind of way. They were in the newspaper. They voted, if they voted. They had news of the colored people. You know, I found a newspaper article. I found a newspaper article that I didn't even know existed, that was written that my grandmother, when she died in Winston-Salem, North Carolina at the age of 28, and it listed my father, her son, Philip Alexander, was on his way to that town for his mother's funeral. I didn't even know that newspaper existed. Because the story that I was told was that my father was in Winston-Salem when my grandmother died. That was not true,
wasn't true.
according to the news of the
According to the
people.
newspaper.
Yeah.
So it's important for folks to start looking in the newspaper to see what kind of stories are being told, or what kind of news is making it into the newspaper about your family.
Right.
Because in little towns, you wonder, how's this news getting in here from these little towns? Yes, they made
Those
news.
little towns always got a church.
They had fairs, they had bazaars, they had bake-offs, they did things. And you have to think, what kinds of things happened in that community that would have made the newspaper? Just get people to start thinking of all kinds of opportunities that may exist for them to find their relatives beyond the census. Because, I'm telling people that's every 10 years. What happened in between those years?
Yes.
And
A lot can
I
happen.
really try to focus on the in-between years, because it's something.
And there's a
need to
state
know.
census that could be in between too.
Yes.
True.
But we need to shoot down the myth that there's no records, nothing exists.
Prior to 1870.
Yes, prior to.
I have a laundry list. Y'all tune in. I have a
Well,
laundry list.
and then I would add personal papers. We're
Absolutely.
talking about the enslavers. A lot of these families have these papers within their estates, and when they're gone, hopefully those families donate them, and then a lot of this stuff comes to light then. And then talking about Shelley and the name changing, I worked with a client, and it's a local family here that's very well known. They've owned a business for over 100 years here, and their name changed. You know how it changed or why it changed? It's because about 3 generations ago, the patriarch of the business ordered some stationery, and it came in spelled wrong. And he was a cheapskate. He didn't get it fixed. And you know what? The name of that family changed that day and has been that ever since. So we have to keep our minds open as to records and information, and not put blinders on that it has to be this way.
Right.
And that's
And
one
then
of the
You're right
challenges.
about private collections.
Yes.
Because papers were donated. And the reason I found the plantation records, of which I will not tell you who they belong to, is because I found out they were in a private collection.
Oh, that means that was a high profile person.
And when you sometimes ask a librarian at a certain institution if they have these records, and they say absolutely, you're on the right track. So you have to look at university collections. You have to have understanding of the role that librarians play. I love librarians. They have the knowledge. They can direct you to papers that you probably wouldn't even think of. But those private collections may be the place to go to look for the records.
And Bernice,
Well,
earlier
I
you
think-
mentioned historical and genealogical societies.
I was
Those
just getting ready to
members,
say,
those members are so knowledgeable of
Mhm.
local history. Where are the
Okay.
records of even if they're in someone's home? So
Right.
yeah.
Jenny,
Jenny,
had a
Jenny, and
question,
then Laura. Yeah.
I guess I'll go first. I think one of the myths that still exists, I'm here in New England and in Connecticut, that there were no enslaved individuals in the Northeast, in New England.
Right.
And so what we deal with in our society is the shock that people all of a sudden are reading a will. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, what, who's that? And like, why are they being, willed to someone else?
Right.
And I think, I'm fascinated with this discussion, because I think that there is, I don't think there's enough knowledge, up here, to be able to guide people. And I wonder if there's I know you said there's not really any go-to resources because you need to look at the whole picture, you need to look at what's going on at the time, but are there some places that you would recommend for people to begin, begin, I guess, to try to, I, I don't even know what I'm asking, like more
But you're
specifically.
making sense. You're making sense. And again, designating, saying the Northeast, number one, yeah, a lot of folks don't know that was there, that I'm going to say people were enslaved there. It might not look exactly the same way it did down here in Virginia,
Right,
Mississippi,
right.
Louisiana, but they're still there. They are still owned, or they could be a servant, still in the
Same.
connotation of being owned,
Right,
but
right.
again, you're still going to have to go back to what Bernice said first. Start with what you know. That's yourself, and build out. Now, if you're in the Northeast, and I do research Connecticut, Massachusetts, big thing right now is Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. Got the crazies that left out Boston and went into Rhode Island and started basically Providence, Rhode Island. But again, and then going through their records, did they have enslaved? And I'm looking for both because I'm expecting it, but that's just because I do this kind of stuff all the time. But I would say people just need to have the open. Don't think slavery was just in the South. It was not. It was everywhere.
Everywhere.
The money was flowing, the labor was flowing, and the paper was flowing.
There you go. I like that.
Slavery is about economics.
Yes.
But remember the free people of color as well. Matter of fact, Bernice will be on this Saturday closing out Black History Month for the International African American Museum Center for Family History. And the whole month, each of the sessions focused on the free people, because people again get attached always looking for people that were enslaved or the enslaver and so forth. But remember, they're free people in that same community that could be attached. You can imagine that you're free and your brothers and sisters are enslaved.
Yeah.
And again, understanding that they understood. We're grasping with it, but they understood. So again, as far as the records, you're going to still go through the traditional records, your vital statistics. I pray for my work that I do. I pray that person, whoever owned the person or doing the renting, died before the end of the Civil War. Why? Because then I'm going to have a nice little bag of records and resources that I find. I'm looking for descendants of the enslaved. So I'm doing a little bit of reverse genealogy. I'm popping back and forth. But coming back to the names and also records, 96% of who I'm looking for is first name only. So the tip that Bernice said earlier, I don't have any choice but to do that. But I also got to find out who's in that community, because that first name can change just like that last name, or it could be variations. I'm looking for Big Sam, Old Sam, Yellow Sam. How do I find that? And if I'm looking in the Northeast, I'm looking for Samuel. You see the difference? In the South, Big Sam, Young Sam, Old Sam, or Sam. Northeast, Samuel.
Interesting.
That's how I'm seeing it from my experience. It might not be Jimmy, it's going to be James up there. Because think of who's there, where they're coming from as well. And then what's down here, I'm going to say in the South. So I don't think there's any specific records. You're looking for the same things, and things like that. I don't know if anyone else has something to add to that, but just know that slavery was in the North, South, East, and West.
East and West.
Also, it's important for people to understand how records are broken down. What federal records do you want to look in?
Or need
what
to?
Might my ancestors be?
Yeah.
Mhm.
What local records
Mhm.
Yeah.
might I find my family members? What might I find in a courthouse?
Right.
You have to start thinking of this and studying it by different places,
Mhm.
different avenues, knowing where you need to go and what you might want to find. If you're Catholic, you might want to start with the Archdiocese.
Church records.
And I remember writing to the Archdiocese in Baton Rouge and got my great-grandfather's information and what have you, because they had it.
Mhm.
So you have to also think of the religions.
Mhm.
What religion did they practice? And who might have information concerning that particular group? Are they African American Methodist, African American Methodist Episcopal churches? You know,
Right.
or they the Church of God in Christ? I mean, you have to understand that if they are a part of some of these churches, they may have had the newsletters and they may have other information that you want to go to because those were the records that your ancestors were asking for help and putting information in these newsletters so that folks could find ancestors that were split apart and now they want to get them together
Yes,
again.
now they want to get
And then
together.
understand what's in the Freedman Bureau record.
Yes.
Understand there's something called a slave ship manifest.
Mhm.
Understand that they're runaway slave ads.
Mhm.
You're gonna have to just understand all the stuff that's out there
Right.
to start looking and say, did my ancestor run away? Oh, I found her. There she is, ran away. But it's part of you educating yourself too about the record groups. That's the reason why I promote and encourage people to join genealogical groups
Yeah.
to find out, well, what can I learn from this group? Who's giving presentations? Educate yourself. Now, the ordinary person may not do that.
Mhm.
Or they may watch a show on television and say, that's how I'm learning about genealogy, not understanding that a 20-minute television show is not what it's like. It's for some people, it
Exactly.
takes many years to get
Okay.
to where you need
Real-
to.
So
Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead, Laura. You've been waiting a while. Sorry. Go ahead.
one of the things I can't remember which one of you said was to find a genie buddy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's say that someone is new to African American genealogical research and it's big and it's overwhelming and they want to learn. How do they find this buddy? Obviously they want the buddy to be smarter than them, right? All right, more knowledgeable than them, maybe not smarter, more knowledgeable. But I mean, how did they do that? They just go to the society meeting and just say, I'm new here and I would love someone that can mentor me a little bit.
Sometimes,
I'm willing
yes.
to do the work.
I
And
was gonna say, yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
that's how it happens. But
Yeah.
remember, there's Black folks in APG, in GS,
That's
and
right.
typically in every society around, you know, and even thinking about even, you know, DAR, your lineage societies and things. And there's so much available right now.
So
that
much
we-
education out there too, Shelley, like legacy
Yes.
family webinars. There's so
webinars, all of, and I'm
Right.
saying free, that you don't have
right.
to
And
pay.
and the ones you guys do for the museum, you know?
Those are, and all of this was talking about just free people of color. And
But you've
again,
done
and
so many others. Yeah.
this topic, the question that Jenny had, I think I'm gonna design a talk on that.
That's
So
a
I'm
good
going to
idea.
give you all something that you can have that could be like a handout or something that would help. And because when they're looking in those, I'm going to say the Northeast places, it's not that there's different records, but there is different systems of how that stuff is.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about it at the federal level and how Melissa might do in Tennessee at her archives. It might do it a little bit different, but at least to have resources for people to go. And another place, I think it's on the museum website, the International African American Museum, there should be a resource list.
Mhm.
There's also a site, the Black Pearls of Genealogy. It's nothing but resources. Nothing. And this is a young man. I shouldn't say, well, young man. He's a retired Marine, but a young man that as he learns, he's building this website to tell everybody what he learned. He tapped into the Freedmen's Bureau and has lost his mind. I mean, literally, but what it is, it's so easy to use, but it's called the Black Pearls of Genealogy, and it's the BOG, whatever the ending.
We'll get these links and we'll put them
Yeah,
in the blog
because
post on the video.
and anything we present to him, he hangs out with us on Freedman Friday. Anything we tell him about or a new resource, I guarantee you within a week, he's going to have it explained and everything this is how he's learning. He's only been involved in genealogy about 3 years now. And it's just blossoming, and he's learning so much. He's got now the 5 civilized tribes.
Yeah, he's doing it all.
He's got that built out there. The bank records that she referenced earlier, and everything that we present to him or say to him, and it's like, what? Where do I get that at? How do I find that? How do I do this? And then he builds it on this website. So it's like a one-stop resource. Those are the kind of things I think will help people because they can go home and digest it and take their time to go through it. You know, and then whatever you have.
Everybody has a different learning style.
Right.
Exactly.
And the reason I really like Genie Buddies is because some Genie Buddies will just keep asking you questions and helping you and help you analyze what you're picking up. Other Genie Buddies will do it for you. I would prefer not to be that kind of Genie Buddy. I'm the kind of Genie Buddy to kind of go help you walk yourself
I'm
through
holding
it so that
hands.
once you learn, you know it. If I
then you
do
can
it,
help somebody
you're not
else.
learning. You're just
Exactly.
watching me. I don't
That's
want
right.
you to watch me.
I
I
don't
want
want you to
you
watch me
to do it yourself.
Learn it
Because
yourself.
once you've done it yourself, nobody can take that learning away from
Oh,
you.
exactly. Now, speaking of learning, each of you, Shelley, will you explain what Freedman Fridays is? And then I want Bernice to talk to us about her podcast, and she's got a new one because both of these are ways to learn. And so I would like to highlight those. Shelley, go first and talk about Freedman Fridays. You've talked about that a lot on the show, but tell people what it is.
Don't forget Maggie now. You got two
That's true. That's true.
coordinators here too.
That's true.
And they're the only, and I'll talk about Maggie real quick.
Okay.
Midwest African American Genealogy.
Both are involved in that, yes.
It's the only one in the country. We just finished 12 years. This 2025 will be 13 years. This is a genealogy institute that is open to anyone. There's 4 to 5 tracks that happen every year, and typically they're online, but they didn't start that way. They started in person. We were in St. Louis, then we went to Fort Wayne, Indiana, with a fabulous partnership with the Allen County Public Library and stuff. And we're still attached with them. But of course, since COVID, a lot of things have changed. So what you have is tracks, 12 classes over 3 days.
Learning about African American genealogy. Yeah.
And it is all focused on African American genealogy.
It's fabulous. Able to go online.
Strategies. It could be slave era. It could be DNA. And then we have a new track that we brought back. Angela Walton Raji is heading this track up, and it's writing and publishing. And we did it about 10 years ago or so. So that's an opportunity, number one, small classes over 3 days. You're going to have activity, so there's interactions. And there's, and again, it was beautiful in Fort Wayne because people could run upstairs.
Right. Right.
And go
research
pull
right
records
there.
and this, that, and other. So that's available, and they can go to MaggieInstitute.org.
Put that link.
More
Definitely have the link.
about that.
Yeah.
So Freedman Friday, real quick on that. Freedman Friday started off with the work I do with the university. The question was, how am I going to let people know about this project? I'm researching 9 counties in Central Virginia and everything revolves around Thomas Jefferson and what becomes the University of Virginia. And one of the ways was to hit social media.
Mhm.
And then I thought, you know what? If I have to teach people about it to get more information and hopefully find connections and tips and things, then this is what I'm going to do. So Freedman Bureau records are my favorite collection to get in. Number one, it's before 1870.
Mhm.
And the proper name is the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. It's not a black collection or anything like that. It's a federal collection under the military right after the Civil War, where they set up field offices throughout the South for people to get assistance. Number one, the refugees are white people. So
Mhm.
white people, you're in those records just like the black people are. And I want people to understand, because when that war is over, you got chaos. There's a whole bunch of records being generated. That Freedman Bureau Friday, we are tapping into 3.4 million records with names, ages, places, connections, relationships, and
Mhm.
the whole 9 yards. So again, I used that, and then a couple other folks tapped in that also have projects that are looking for descendants of enslaved communities and things.
Mhm.
And again, this is the hub, that Freedman Bureau, 1865 to 1872. And of course, we look at the Freedman Bank records and other collections that would connect with them, and other, microfilm collections. So that's Freedman Friday. Anybody can come, you register, sign up, but we want you to participate.
Gotcha.
If you got questions, you got 50, 60 people
Gotcha.
that might be researching the same area. You can go in breakout rooms if there's something specific.
Nice.
So it's just open for anybody. And it's not just black people there. I'll say
I might
that.
have to. I might have
It's
to.
everybody. Yeah. And if you got a problem, this is
Right.
where you got the Genie Buddies, how you acquire some of them, because you might be researching, Spartanburg, South Carolina, or whatever, Houston County, Tennessee type thing. And you might find someone that's also researching that same place, and then you start collaborating. So again, we're just hanging out. It's very informal, just hanging out, a whole bunch of talking going on, but we are going through every week. We are going through looking at documents and records and information. That's it.
Good. We'll put that link. Thank you, Shelley. We'll put that link now. Miss Bernice, you and your podcast.
Yes.
Tell us about your podcast.
Okay, so my podcast is called Ancestors Footprints. It's on the Spreaker.com platform. And this is a podcast where I believe that we will focus. The intent is to focus on uncovering family history. We know that this is a lifelong journey. And so the goal is to have people come on and tell their stories.
Oh,
And so in that, you'll hear practical tips, because I will always ask about lessons learned or what have you, but it is open to individuals who want to share their stories. One of the things that I definitely encourage people to do is tell your story. Don't take that story to the grave. So tell your story and share your story. And Ancestors Footprints is the name that I like, because it's telling me that we're walking in our ancestors. And so that's what it's all about.
I'll be tuning in. Love it.
We will definitely put that.
And everybody's welcome to join.
And you were such a good educator too. So, I want to make sure, that your new project is on our list of places to go and learn from this video. So I could sit here all night and ask questions. I know we all could, but we got to let y'all go at some point. So we appreciate you helping us out with some tips and tricks and those myths, busting some of those myths that I know a lot of people will say, well, we can't get past 1870. We're stuck there.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not true. And I think another one is but my ancestors won't be named. That is not true either. That is not true either. So start with yourself,
Yeah.
move your way back through the records, learn about the area, learn about the laws, and find your ancestors. So thank you everybody for joining us. We'll have all the links that we talked about in the video description and in the blog post. And with that, we will see you next time on GenFriends.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. If they got questions, let us know.
Exactly. If you've got questions that we didn't cover tonight, please ask them, and I will dish them out to Shelley and Bernice.
Or you're going to answer them yourself.
Maybe, but might as well send them to the experts. So anyway, we will see you on GenFriends next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.